The Buffalo Bills go on the road this Sunday to face their AFC East division rival Miami Dolphins. Miami is currently installed as a 4-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ, 41.5 the total. Now the Dolphins are 6-8. That's not good, but considering where we projected this team to be coming into the year, many people, myself included, thought the Dolphins are going to be among the worst teams in the NFL, and they have not been that. As a matter of fact, the Dolphins are still alive in the playoff race in the AFC, as hard as that is to believe, and it's not even that far-fetched. If the Dolphins win out, if they win their last two games, all that has to happen for them to make the playoffs is for Pittsburgh to beat Cincinnati this weekend, and they're favored. For Cincinnati to lose to Baltimore in Week 17, definitely a possibility, and for Pittsburgh to lose to Cleveland in Week 17. Now, I know there's a few ifs in there, and probably the most far-fetched of those three things is Miami winning out, because in Week 17, they have to go on the road to face the New England Patriots. But you never know. Depending on what happens between now and then, that game could be rendered meaningless for the Patriots. They might end up resting people. You never know what might happen. Point is, Miami's still alive in terms of the playoff race. 4-point favorites over the Buffalo Bills, a team coming off a 50-17 defeat at the hands of the Seattle Seahawks. Technically, that was a home game for the Bills, but not really. They played in Toronto at the Rogers Center, and apparently, I actually watched that game, but I watched it with the sound off because I was watching it on split screen. Apparently, the Buffalo Bills were not getting much home crowd support. I was hearing there was just as many Seattle fans in the building as there were Buffalo fans. Still, for the Bills to surrender 50 points to the Seattle Seahawks, an offense that had been sort of conservative before they exploded over the last 2 weeks, certainly has to be concerning and disappointing to Buffalo fans, especially when you consider the Bills' defense really seemed to have turned a corner after playing terribly for the first month of the season. They had cleaned up their act for the most part these last few weeks, but as we said, it all fell apart on Sunday. But the Dolphins, they're not very good on offense. 27th in the NFL in yards per game, 25th in points scored. You know, the Bills had been playing better in the secondary. Buffalo's main weakness is rush defense, and Seattle certainly exploited that last week using that read option very effectively. The Bills are 30th in the NFL in rush defense. I mean, they're 31st in points allowed. They have a bad defense. But their secondary is actually all right, and the Dolphins have not had that much success running the ball over the last few weeks. When they have moved it, and they haven't moved it very much, as we said, 27th in the NFL in total offense, but it has been mainly the passing of Ryan Tannehill. Now, I don't want to say that because they're actually ranked higher in the NFL in rushing offense than they are passing offense, but the Dolphins are running the ball a little bit better the first half of the season. That sort of stalled. They've really relied on their defense over the last few weeks. 6th in the NFL in points allowed, and we do expect a low-scoring game here on Sunday. That's why we see a total like 41.5. And this is really a tough game to call, in my opinion. I know the Dolphins are coming off a big home win last week, but that was against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And as bad as the Bills are, they're markedly better than the Jaguars. I mean, they blew out the Jaguars, after all, a couple of weeks ago. And so a 4-point spread here makes me a little uncomfortable. It makes me want to lean towards Buffalo in the points. Because as we said, Miami does not have a good offense. Even though Buffalo's defense fell apart last week, they have been playing better aside from last week over the last month, especially in the secondary. The Buffalo secondary has actually stepped up and played some good football over the last several weeks. So I feel a close game coming here. I'm just not sure the Dolphins are going to pull away. You know, Buffalo does have a top 10 rushing offense. C.J. Spiller has come on this year. The only problem is the Bills, they don't seem to use C.J. Spiller enough. And in my opinion, when I watch that team, seems like they should get C.J. Spiller the ball more in different kinds of situations. But he's broke out a little bit, and I don't know, feet to the fire. I think Buffalo keeps it close here. Now, the reason I say feet to the fire, I liked the Bills last week. I backed them as 5.5-point underdogs against Seattle, and obviously I was way wrong about that game. So I'm a little cautious about overvaluing the Bills. Maybe I think the Bills are a little better than they actually are. But I don't think the Dolphins are very good, and I feel a close game coming here, a close, low-scoring game. So as I said, feet to the fire, gun to my head, I lean towards Buffalo +4 in this game.